I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. A very different Till We Make It today, and it has to be given today's date. So if you turned up here hoping for another of the educational tutorial videos in the usual Till We Make It style, this will not be one of those. And maybe this one is not for you. If so, I'll see you in the next one. This one's also likely to come out a little more raw because I feel like I have to truck directly through this one to get through what I have to say to you. Last but not least, I am aware that outside right now, there's like a team of people with lawnmowers and weed whackers. And if in the middle of this, you're like, is that a lawnmower I hear in the background? Yeah, it absolutely is. I tried to shoo them away to no avail. I'm sorry about that. Today marks the 14th anniversary of the passing of my student, my protege, my friend, and my brother, sweet and sour Larry Sweeney. He left us on this date back in 2011. And every time this comes around, it is a great opportunity to reflect. No doubt, shortly after I'm done with this, I bet, my phone's going to start to light up as members of my greater wrestling family and I choose to share some now kind of bittersweet memories of our dear departed friend. And it made me think a little bit about what I keep and what I discard, what I throw away. So a little context for you. Growing up, I was a big comic book collector. My collection grew to the point that I had 30 boxes of comics. These days, I just have one. I had to get rid of my collection, but I did hang on to a box of my favorites. There was no way I was getting rid of that Falcon limited series from '83 by James Owsley. There was no way I was parting with the Simonson run on X Factor. But my days of comic collecting are by and large behind me now. And I collect all kinds of physical media. I love CDs. They're so outmoded. I don't care. I love them. I love DVDs. I love posters. I love print material. I used to have a massive collection of wrestling magazines. For years, I kept one copy of every wrestling magazine that my name was in, either where I appeared as a subject in the magazine or then when I was working for the magazines, anything that had my byline on it. I kept a copy of all of those. Don't know where most of those are these days. There was a time when I collected and kept everything, and I live a lot more modestly these days. Like, I just don't have the room for that kind of stuff anymore. A couple of the trophies and plaques I've won from like tournaments or accolades I've gotten from my career, you know where they are? In the closet directly behind where the camera is right now. They're about 6 feet away from me in storage behind my winter coat. Right now, under my bed, like in a Tupperware storage bin, 3 championship title belts. That's where they are. Yeah, they're in Tupperware, basically is where they are. But there are a couple things that I keep near at hand at all times. There's 4 of them. And I want to share those 4 things with you today. And I'll tell you the story of each one. This is my fanny pack. It's only the second one that I've ever had. I discarded my first one. This one was given to me as a gift by the late, great Larry Sweeney. He gave it to me on my 30th birthday. Now, there's nothing wrong with my previous fanny pack other than it's a fanny pack. It did have a drink holder on the front, which was pretty sweet. This one, a little sleeker, a little bit more fashionable, if that term can ever be applied to a fanny pack. On my 30th birthday, we were about to leave for a booking to go somewhere, and Larry Sweeney presented this to me wrapped in newspaper. So I knew a lot of forethought had gone into this particular gift. And of course, I could see he was waiting with great anticipation in his eyes for me to open it up. So I ripped open the gift, and of course, inside was this fanny pack. And I looked at this, and I looked at him a little confused, and he came up beside me, and he slapped me on the back, and he said, "Now you're a worker, kid." I still laugh every single time I think about that. This fanny pack will stay with me for the rest of my life, and it sits on an end table right next to my bed forevermore. Anytime there is ever occasion to put on a fanny pack, the one I was given 19 years ago by my own protege is the one that goes with me. I'll show you this next item from my personal treasure chest of mementos in a second, but some important context. Of the 600, give or take, live events I've promoted and produced throughout my career, none were bigger undertakings in terms of their scope, the stress that they represented, the budget, than King of Trios, which was typically a 3-day-long tournament all trios matches in the tournament. There were also non-tournament matches. And most iterations of the tournament contained 48 professional wrestlers, plus an additional 12 to 20 wrestlers that we brought in to fill out the non-tournament matches. So a talent-heavy weekend that required a ton of marketing, promotion, creative work behind the scenes, travel logistics, etc., etc. Internally, I would often joke that work on next year's King of Trios begins the moment this year's King of Trios is over. And most years that wasn't a joke at all. That was the reality of it. The biggest of these, the most enormous of these undertakings were King of Trios 2010 and 2011. Both of them had enormous, frightening budgets and just represented enormous amounts of stress for a variety of reasons. However, King of Trios 2011 took place just days after sweet and sour Larry Sweeney passed away. It took place in April of 2011. And while there was briefly consideration about canceling the entire tournament for all kinds of reasons, that just wasn't the right choice. And we decided that the show must go on. That weekend in particular, 3 people that I've idolized were coming for the tournament. Manami Toyota, one of my great inspirations, on my Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, was coming to wrestle at King of Trios. Sean Waltman was coming to wrestle at King of Trios. And the founder of Michinoku Pro, the great Sasuke, was coming to King of Trios. Significant in so much that the promotion that presented King of Trios, Chikara, would not exist if not for Michinoku Pro. Michinoku Pro is the inspiration for Chikara, and the founder was coming to King of Trios. All of this had deep personal significance to me. As I did at the beginning of every single King of Trios, there was a big production meeting. All the talent was there, and we talked about what the objectives for the weekend were, how we were going to achieve those goals, and the role that every single person played in those. In terms of, like the significance, I guess, the heft of the meetings that I would present all throughout the year, none could rival the one that kicked off King of Trios. It had to be right. It had to set the tone. It had to set everybody up to do the work because it's a very demanding, very taxing weekend of wrestling to produce. 3 non-stop days. However, of course, this was the first time that I saw my assembled wrestling family since the passing of Larry Sweeney. There was nowhere to hide from the reality that our brother was no longer among us. As I made my way through the production meeting that afternoon, seeing some of my idols there, but being confronted with the reality that if Larry Sweeney was going to be anywhere that weekend, it would probably be right there in that building with us at King of Trios, I became flushed with emotion, and I could not finish my speech, and I began to sob. I was deeply ashamed of this because of who was there watching. What must Manami Toyota have thought in that moment? What did the great Sasuke think? I came all the way from Japan, and what is happening here? They probably had little to no context for understanding why this meeting was abruptly adjourned, and a bunch of us were consoling one another. Now, I do know our translator, who worked extra hard for us all weekend long, Shiori, made sure that they understood the emotionally charged circumstances surrounding that weekend's King of Trios, from the tribute that we paid to Larry Sweeney that started it all, to just trying to make it through the finale on Sunday night, which is when, after everything was said and done, the group at large, those of us, the people who did not have to, rush to get on a flight to get home or whatever, we all went out to dinner together. Nothing fancy. We couldn't have afforded anything fancy. I'm 99% sure we went to a Denny's by the Philadelphia airport, so those people who had late night flights could still get out. And there was just an immense emotional catharsis for finishing the weekend. There at dinner, of course, were our guests. And right around the corner of the table from me was the great Sasuke. If not for his body of work, none of us would have been around that table. There would be no Chikara. There would be no King of Trios if not for him. And I'm going to reach right out of frame here and grab this real quick so you can see it. The great Sasuke was raised to honor the tradition of luchadors. That's the way that I have been raised in wrestling, so to speak, to respect the legacy and the secrecy of masks. Masks grant anonymity to the people that wear them, and it is of deep significance to glimpse the face of the person underneath. I know the way wrestling culture has changed a lot lately. There are people who give no thought to protecting the identity of who is beneath the mask, and I find that repugnant. I was raised with a very traditional lucha libre take on masks, and so too was the great Sasuke. So much so that throughout the entire weekend, no one saw his exposed face. In fact, when I was on tour with Michinoku Pro years prior, I never saw his exposed face. But at the end of the dinner, this mask, a special mask which he wore, which allowed him to eat more comfortably. If you're familiar with the mask, and I'll put it up on screen so you can see it, of the great Sasuke, you know this part is normally closed. This one is an open mouth mask to make it easy for him to eat without having to take his mask off. At the end of the dinner, as the Michinoku Pro team was bidding us farewell, the great Sasuke took this off and gave it to me. The power of that is as potent now as it was then. I'll never forget it. This has never left my possession. The next thing from my treasure chest that I want to share with you usually hangs about 10 feet over there, framed just above my computer monitor, so I can see it every day when I work. And I've got it right here for you. I'll show it to you after I tell you the story. It too is tied to King of Trios 2011. So you will recall a moment ago I told you Manami Toyota was in for the tournament, and so too was Sean Waltman. Sean Waltman, as the 1-2-3 kid, gave permission to an entire generation of fans to dream, to believe that they could be professional wrestlers. I know this because I'm one of them. My old tag team and business partner, Reckless Youth Tom Carter, he's one of them too. He'd tell you as much if he was standing here beside me right now. He's not. When the 1-2-3 kid beat Razor Ramon with a moonsault in May of 1993 on Monday Night Raw, that changed everything for a legion of us out there. And from that moment forward, it became possible to think that one day I could be a professional wrestler. He gave me that gift. How do you ever repay something like that? His work as the 1-2-3 kid is a constant inspiration. Even now, I go back and revisit the singles he did with Bret Hart at the Fernwood Resort. Nothing to this day gives me more joy than the January 10th, 1994 episode of Monday Night Raw where the 1-2-3 kid and crazy Uncle Marty Jannetty win the WWF Tag Team titles from the Quebecers. It is a banger. It's better than 99% of the wrestling being made today. It's outstanding. Well, I wanted to bring Sean Waltman to King of Trios, but I wanted him to reprise the 1-2-3 kid character. I didn't know how he was going to feel about that. I didn't know that this was going to fly. But I had to do what I do a lot of times when I need to make something like that happen. I began to play 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Who knows who knows who? Who has the contact of the next person in the chain that's going to get me one person closer to Sean Waltman's phone number so I can call him and pitch him this idea of mine? Every step along the way, and I want you to know, Sean Waltman's not the only person I went through this with. Lex Luger's another. There's a story for another day. Every step of the way, whoever I contacted in the chain said, you do not want to make this phone call. Do not call Sean Waltman. Do not ask him this. You are not going to want him in your locker room. You're not going to want to deal with him. He's a cancer in wrestling. You don't want. It was bad news every step of the way. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard this kind of secondhand nonsense from people. And the truth is, when you actually speak to the man himself, nothing could be further from the truth. That what people like to say and spread around about somebody, surprise, surprise, has very little relationship to reality. When I finally got Sean Waltman on the phone, I made sure to explain to him how deeply significant his body of work is to me. Ongoing. but as an inspiration, as a starting point for myself, and how much the 1-2-3 Kid meant to me. And I asked him, would you be willing to reprise the character for just one weekend? Nothing would please me like being able to present the 1-2-3 Kid to an audience at King of Trios 2011. And he said yes. When he turned up at the arena for night one, he still had a full beard. He looked like X-Pac. He looked like Six, or whatever of the other names he was going by in the interim periods there. He didn't look like the 1-2-3 Kid. But I got to I witnessed several magical things that weekend. But the first of them was this. At the time, the bathroom in the arena was going under heavy construction. So much so that in the middle of the floor with nothing else around it, there was just a toilet. I don't know if it was installed. I don't know if they were going to put stalls around it later. It was just a lone toilet in the middle of the locker room. But there was also a sink and a mirror in plain view of everyone. So I wasn't alone in watching as, with a disposable razor and a can of shaving foam from the local pharmacy, Sean Waltman, one razor stroke at a time, transformed back into the 1-2-3 Kid. And when he toweled his face off, clean shaven, and turned around, it was like we had all traveled through time back to 1993 together. It was incredible. That night in the ring, his performance was good. And the next night, it was great. And by the last night, it was the stuff of legend. When he came back from his singles match with El Generico, he was flush with emotion in that moment. And seeing his reaction, all of us crowded around the screen watching it, we could feel it. It was palpable. It was in the air, the emotion. And he excused himself. He went out back, had a cigarette, and then said he needed a moment to himself. And there was a dressing area where he could sequester himself to have a bit of privacy. And we had a little more show to finish up anyway. So this was all well and good. When at last King of Trios was done, but before we adjourned for the farewell dinner at a Denny's near the Philadelphia International Airport, I thought, well, I should go and wrangle Sean Waltman, right? Where is he? What I discovered is he was already gone, but he had tacked something to the door of that dressing room, which still hangs framed at my desk right now. Here it is. This is what he left. This letter, I'll never forget this weekend as long as I live. You are the future of wrestling. It has been my honor to be here. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Sean Waltman, a.k.a. the 1-2-3 Kid. This reminds me of something every single time that I see it. If you've ever taken a seminar or class with me, you may have heard me say something to this effect. I got to meet all of my wrestling heroes, except for the late, great Owen Hart, and they were all fantastic. If you've ever heard the adage that you should never aspire to meet your heroes because they're doomed to disappoint you, I am evidence of the contrary. I did the gamut. This reminds me, if you make the mistake of thinking your heroes, the people that you idolize in wrestling, in life, whatever the case might be, if you see them as being anything other than human, like a two-dimensional caricature, if you treat them like an action figure meant to be put in a display case, if you put them on that kind of pedestal, well then you're really doing a disservice to them because they're just a fellow human being. They're just another person. They've gone through their highs and their lows, their triumphs and their failures. They are multidimensional. And on any given day, they might be cranky and nasty to deal with, and on the next day, they might be pleasant as pie. But they're a real person, and if you're willing to see them for everything that they are, and understand that they're, just like you, a regular old person, they'll never disappoint you. And this, I think, affirms to me that we often imagine people who have given us something great, like inspiration, it is a debt that can never be repaid. But in some small measures, there are ways you can pay it back. Today is a hard day, bear with me. Last, last but not least, and I have two of these. I have my white one and I have my blue one right over there. This one contains about 50, give or take, and the blue one contains about 35. The last of these was presented to me on May 27th, 2017, and these sit right next to my bed. They are there in case the day ever requires they be opened. Inside, and I'm not going to share exactly this content with you, are letters and, I don't know, memories, maybe, is the way I want to phrase this, from all kinds of members of my extended wrestling family. So not only people that I wrestled with, people that I trained, people that I mentored, etc., but the people that I encountered along the way. Maybe they were part of a production that I made, or we got to share the ring or a tour together. So some of my fondest were called proteges. They're all in here. And people I really look up to and admire as well, from Meiko Satomura to the singular Johnny Saint, Crazy Uncle Marty Jannetty is in here, and a few other legends and heroes of mine as well, attesting to what my body of work means to them. Just thinking a little bit about how power-packed this is, it puts me in a place that I rarely choose to inhabit, because I'm not someone who's particularly proud of my own work. I don't spend time reflecting on it or its significance or its value, especially in this latter part of my career. At no point do I ever feel possessed. I often see some wrestlers who obviously have played on much bigger stages and have probably earned a whole lot more money than I have, take a room in their house and almost build a museum to themselves. I am not here building a monument to Mike Quackenbush at any point in time. But this does remind me of the impact that my work has had in surprising ways. And maybe this is how I'll choose to close this, because otherwise I think it's going to descend into something I don't want it to be. No matter what it is that you do, you contribute to the world, maybe you make something, you host a podcast, whatever the case might be, you impact other people's lives in ways you cannot imagine, and often in ways that are disproportionate to how you see it. This and its blue companion over there are constant reminders that even the work we overlook, the work that we dismiss for its insignificance, to someone out there most likely has immense significance. And the letters and the paragraphs and the words contained in these binders remind me of that in the most powerful way. You may think right now, the thing you are working on, the thing that you are creating, the thing that you're putting out there into the world, it could be something as humble as the way you're raising your kid. You may not stop to give thought to its lasting significance, but I want to assure you, its lasting significance is not being overlooked by the people who experience it, who are grateful in ways that sometimes we don't always get reminded of, and who respect and admire you for the work that you're always doing.